In today's episode, want to speak to my manager? I hope you like rolls. That time a boss killed his own company. Sore throat. Come to work. So let's get started. Want to speak to my manager? I hope you like rolls. Okay, this happened about 20 years ago, when I was 17 and working in a major UK supermarket in a rather affluent London suburb. This was my first proper weekend job. I used to work in the bakery, and it was the best section to work in a supermarket. My job was to make sure that bread and fresh cakes was well stocked and presented, and test the odd donut for quality control purposes, so that we can make sure there was fresh items available before we ran out, slicing fresh bread and making sure rolls were stocked and tongs were available. One busy Saturday, I was doing a quick inventory count, and when I came to the individual rolls, I saw a middle-aged lady in a large furry coat and luscious red fingernails. I didn't pay much attention to her until I saw her with a crusty roll in her manicured and bejeweled hand, give it a squeeze, poke her thumb through the crust and threw it back in the basket. She did it again, and when she reached in to try a third one, I piped up. "Excuse me, ma'am, would you mind using the tongs provided, please?" She ignored me and grabbed the third roll and broke the crust, so, a little louder, I said, "Ma'am, please use the tongs provided." She heard me that time and glared at me and said, "I beg your pardon? Ma'am, please don't grab the rolls, please use the tongs in the basket. Are you saying that my hands are dirty?" She then raised her voice while waving her embellished hand at me, wiggling her fingers so they sparkled as they moved. "Are you suggesting that this is filthy?" Well, knowing that folks tend not to wash their hands before using trolleys and baskets, without blinking or thinking, I said, "Yes, they are. Please use the tongs." The inevitable happened. "I want to speak to your manager at once. You should learn to respect your elders and betters. I'll have your job for this insolence." So, I called for the bakery manager to come on down, bearing in mind, this was a busy Saturday. He was in his whites and wanted to know what the problem was. The woman went into a sob story on how she was testing the rolls for freshness, and I was so rude to her, telling her how her hands were filthy, a few crocodile tears here and there, how she had never been so insulted. In a stern voice, my manager turned to me and said, "Did you say this to her?" Now, I was starting to think I did something wrong and a bit nervous. I replied, "Yes, I asked her to use the tongs." She ignored me, so I asked her again. "Okay." My manager turned to the woman, said that he will be back shortly. He needed to do something and get some paperwork. While my manager was out of earshot, the woman crowed, "See what happens when you don't know your place. I said I could have your job for this." My manager did a quick count of the rolls, muttered 224 loudly, and went into the back room. He then emerged with an industrial-sized black bin liner. He then proceeded to empty 8 large baskets of rolls into the bin liner, and a label for 224 individual granary rolls, tied up the bag, handed it to her, and said, "Here you are, madam, they're all yours." "I beg your pardon?" "The rolls, madam, they're all yours. You openly admitted to contaminating our stock. You ignored a member of staff when she asked you repeatedly to use the tongs. You've wasted my time. You are paying for the stock you have damaged. Good day. What am I supposed to do with all of these bloody rolls? I only wanted 2. With a dazzling customer service smile, my manager chirped, "Not my concern, madam. Security will escort you to the tills and make sure they are paid for. Enjoy your weekend." He then turned on his heels and went back upstairs to the bakery. The woman looked at me, then the huge bag, absolutely aghast, so I did the only thing I could do, grab a random loaf of bread, take it to the bread slicer, and laugh in the back room. I saw her almost every week afterwards, always using the tongs. We wouldn't get away with that now, but easily my favorite manager in all of my years of working. That time a boss killed his own company. This is my dad's story, but he's not into Reddit. My dad is a hard worker. This happened about 15 years ago. worked for a company that fixed and rented heavy equipment, backhoes, scissor lifts, steamrollers, forklifts, etc. His boss, the CEO of the company, whom he reported to directly, was a middle-aged Italian guy whose grasp of English was tenuous at best. He understood what people were saying, but had trouble communicating his own intentions back clearly. On the other hand, my dad had zero grasp of Italian, but spoke perfect English. However, he was a solid mechanic who would go on to make the machine bay of this company something approaching a Sherman production line a la 1943. Shit. Got done. And, even though he didn't always understand what the boss wanted him to do, he just focused on the reason he was hired: manage the repair bay, hire new mechanics, train new hires and off-site on-call repairs. Well, boss guy gets it in his head that my dad is going to replace him as the leader of the company, because he's much better liked, speaks perfect English in an English-speaking country, and has basically all the department heads coming to him for help, even though he's technically only in charge of the repair bay. And so, he calls my dad in, chews him out. We think it was mostly Italian, so my dad wasn't picking up on it, but the tone indicated as much, and manages to communicate that he's being fired for poor work performance. And my dad just smiles, shakes the guy's hand and leaves. And, thanks to his less than firm grasp on both the English language and business law, the boss guy just sent him on his way with his last paycheck and nothing else. So my dad started his own business in the heavy equipment mechanic market. And, after telling all his old work buddies about the situation, suddenly got a bunch of new hires. And his old workplace suddenly had a lot of vacancies that the boss had no idea how to fill, because the guy he'd hired to do that had just been fired. He went under about 6 months later. Sometimes, my dad drives past where the old shop was, on his way to a call. When he does, he just laughs and laughs. Sore throat. Come to work. I finally remembered some malicious compliance that I could submit. Back in the days of Hollywood Video, I worked as one of the many faceless retail employees that rented you videos. I had trouble sleeping the night before due to a sore throat. When I woke up, it had gotten worse as my uvula had swollen larger than my thumb. I called into my manager and told him I was not feeling well, but before I could tell him I was going to the hospital, he told me, "You need to be at work on time or else you get written up," and left me no option but to maliciously comply. So when I went with my uvula occasionally blocking my ability to breathe, causing me to choke, gag, and nearly vomit every couple minutes. When a customer came to check out the video, I would recite the deals we were supposed to offer up, selling whatever the corporate told us to sell, but thanks to my sensitive uvula dangling right above my tongue, I would unintentionally brush against it and gag and cough. I would pause to cough into my elbow and keep reciting as if nothing was wrong. Now this shocked a few customers who quickly checked out and left as soon as possible, but thankfully one kind older lady asked me why I was working, and I happily told her, through coughing fits, that I needed to be at work on time or else I would get written up, which prompted her to ask where my manager was. After leading her to my manager, I worked for another minute before my manager told me to go to the hospital, as I sounded like I was going to choke in front of the customers. Happily checking out, I went to the doctors to find out I had streptococcus or strep throat, which can spread through droplets when someone with the infection coughs and sneezes. I called up my manager to tell him what happened, but by then it was too late. I may have spread the infection to well over a dozen people that day, including my manager. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.